Good morning. This is my second LinkedIn Live. Yesterday's was what to cover in your bid responses in the COVID-19 era. And today's topic on bidding is going to be how to create a bid, no bid decision tool. Many organisations struggle with knowing when to bid, what to bid. They will often say, well, we are a construction company and this is a construction bid, or we are a cleaning company, this is a cleaning bid. We are an IT company, this is an IT bid. Let's just go for it. This is what we do. However, organisations that do that will often have very low win rates, and that's because they don't have a strategy behind choosing which opportunities to bid for. They say that in life, 84% of our decisions are based on emotions, and only 16% of our decision making is based on rational, logical thinking. Now, we think we're in business, so do you know what? That might hold true for emotional decisions, perhaps around relationships, friendships, etc., maybe even buying decisions in our retail lives, but we don't think that we're like that in business. However, I would say, having worked around this business for many years, that many people in organizations display that same characteristic of 84% of decision making, emotionally based decision making. So often as well, it's who holds the position of power within the organization in terms of what to bid for. So, for example, it's true to say that most business owners will often want to, they've been entrepreneurial to start with, so they will want to go for as many opportunities as possible. Salespeople, business development people will often as well, they've got targets to make. They will often want to get involved in bidding opportunities. They will see this as a good way of meeting their targets. There are other, of course, stakeholders usually in an organization and different methods of thinking about it. What I'm going to talk about is the various stakeholders who take part in a decision of bid or no bid. But you know what? Even if you're a very small organization with only just one or two or a few people in it, if you still think about the various hats that people would need to wear in this bid, no bid decision making. So even if they're all these are going on and it's your responsibility, think of it through different lenses. So if we first of all think of the business owner or the company management of the business, then these people want to make sure that the business is operating profitably, and thus it will need to have new business coming in, and much of that could be through bid, tender or proposal processes, but they wouldn't want to be wasting their time either. And that would certainly be true with people who've got a finance perspective. They're going to think about the cost of bidding. There's obviously a cost going into any bid process. You're going to have your staff tied up. There's going to be time and money, and of course time is money as well. All of that is going to be getting spent on the bid process. So it's important that you're going for opportunities where you've got a realistic chance of success, or there is at least a strategic reason why you're going for this bid. Operational people are going to want to make sure that the bid is deliverable. If it's won, what is being said within the bid submission? What does the client want to see? And can your organization deliver it? Even if they can't deliver it just now, will they be able to deliver it when the contract starts? Will they be able to bring in the resources or the people that are necessary to make a success of delivering this contract? The bid team, who are obviously charged with perhaps writing the bid or at least bringing the information together from subject matter experts, they're going to be interested in what's involved in this bid. Can we resource it within the bid team, or are we going to have to perhaps bring in external bid resource to help us out? But also, how winnable is it? So most bid teams should be operating to KPIs. They want to have success statistics about their bidding activity. They don't want to go for no hope bids. And do you know what? It can be soul destroying if you work hard on a bid that really there was never any chance of your organisation winning it. You perhaps spent a number of days, weeks or months involved in that bid. So you definitely want to be using your time wisely. So what I'm going to talk about this morning is how to put a little bit of science behind what could otherwise be emotional decision making. I'm going to talk about how to create a bid, no bid a decision tool or matrix. Now, that may seem quite complicated. You may be in an entrepreneurial organization that just wants to go for everything. So the thought of actually putting a bit of science behind it may be anathema to you. But bear with me, because you'll find that it will improve your win rates. It will make you more efficient, more productive in the use of your time and precious resources. So it's important when you're bringing together this bid, no bid decision tool to perhaps recognize it's not going to be an absolute tablet of stone. So yes, you're going to be guided by it in your decision making, but it doesn't have to be a straitjacket that constrains everything, but it's something that you should be referring to. So what I would suggest is that for bringing together the bid, no bid decision tool, you get the people who are involved in bidding, all these different actors or lenses that I've spoken about, that you discuss with them what they want to see as the criteria. So we're going to establish that there are criteria within the bid, no bid decision tool. Now this tool can be on as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. So you're going to have criteria. You're going to have weighting, because not all criteria has equal weighting. And you're going to then have a score for each of the criteria and an overall or total score. Now, the criteria is going to vary and the weightings are going to vary depending on your sector, depending on the markets that you operate within. What I'm going to do today is talk you through a sample one and give you some of the criteria, but this is by no means an exhaustive list of criteria, nor is every part of the criteria perhaps relevant in your sector. There may be some you want to take out of this proposed bid, no bid decision tool that I'm giving you, and you may want to substitute that with your own criteria. So the first criteria I'm going to put is existing relationship. I'll just list what the criteria are, and then I'll discuss the weighting and the scoring. So existing relationship is first. The second one is client and competitor intelligence. How much you actually know about both the client, the opportunity, and also what your competitors, who they are likely to be for this opportunity. The third one is the size of the opportunity. The size of the opportunity. The fourth one, particularly for public sector tendering, is around the evaluation criteria, the price quality split. And I'll talk about that in more detail shortly. The next one is the profitability, because unless you are perhaps a charitable organisation who is prepared to just do things at cost, or you're prepared to do something at cost just to win this piece of business, normally organisations are bidding something to add to the profitability of their business. So the profitability of the contract should be a criteria for in most bid, no bid decision tools. The next one is the deliverability. How deliverable is this contract for your organisation? And the final one I'm going to give you is strategic fit. Whether this is in your ballpark, whether it's what you do or even what you want to be doing. So let's talk about the weighting now. So the respective weighting now, I'm going to give the first one, the existing relationship, a weighting of 2.5. Everything's going to get a score out of 10, just to make it easy, but the weighting multiplies it. So the maximum score for the existing relationship at the weighting of 2.5 and a maximum score of 10 would be 25. The next one, the client competitor intelligence, we'll just give that standard weighting of 1. The size of the opportunity, I'm going to give a bigger weighting. I'm going to times the score there by 1.5. Everything else apart from profitability, I'm going to give the standard weighting of 1, but profitability, I'm going to give a times 2. So your score out of 10 becomes a score out of 20 for profitability. Now, these are just fairly arbitrary choices that I've made for this particular sample no bid decision tool that we're working on this morning. You'll be able to agree within your organization what the right criteria is within your markets, but also what the respective weightings should be. So now we come to scoring things out of 10. So let's take the existing relationship. How do we give that a score out of 10? Well, let's begin with what would a 10 look like? Well, a 10 would look like you are the incumbent contractor. You're already providing the goods or services on this contract. Not only are you providing the goods and services, but you're doing it very well. You have an excellent relationship with the client. You are meeting or exceeding the key performance indicators of the contract. The client likes you. You're almost, a member of their team. There's a great spirit of partnership working in evidence. And not only that, they have told you that the contract is coming out to tender, particularly in the public sector, because they have to tender the contracts at regular intervals. And they have perhaps involved you before the tender comes out to the market. There's been pre-market engagement, particularly with yourselves as the incumbent contractor. How is the contract working for you? What things do you think could make the next contract better? Anything that's not worked so well? Any ideas that you've got? How is the market moving? What sort of innovations and how is technology changing things? And you get to input into let's say, the shape of what's coming. So therefore, the tender coming out, being advertised through the public sector portals, that's not been any surprise to you. You've known that this is coming. Well, that's a 10. So now that you know what a 10 is, you can work your way back. Let's take a score in the middle, maybe a score of 5. A score of 5 is that the client has heard of you. You've perhaps met them. You've done some things, perhaps in a business development context, or maybe you've been a previous supplier to them, or maybe you're a supplier to them, but on a different contract. So things like that maybe give the 5 or the 6 score to. A 0 is that the client has never heard of you and you've never heard of them. First time you heard about them was when this opportunity came out, perhaps on a public sector portal. If it's a private sector contacting you and asking you for a bid or inviting you to submit a proposal or a quotation, then I would suggest that you want to ask them some questions: how they heard about you, why they've come to you, who else they're going to. Even if they don't give you the names, you want a sense of what the process is going to be like as well. So there's a bit of investigation in the private sector that you want to be doing, but primarily I'm talking initially here about public sector bidding, but a lot of what I'm talking about is actually transferable to private sector bidding as well. So you arrive at your score out of 10, you're going to times it on this occasion by 2.5. So if it's a 5 out of 10, then that times by 2.5 is going to be 12.5 out of the 25 available marks. The client competitor intelligence, when you're grading that, then you're thinking about what you know about this client. Have you met them? You're also thinking as well about what information is available, perhaps in the public domain about them. You also getting information from your bid and particularly your sales and business development leads. Also, it's good to think about in your organisation, has anybody ever worked for that client before? Either worked for them directly as a member of staff or perhaps as a supplier to them. You want to gather in any information you can. Thinking also about competitor intelligence. What do you know about who will be bidding for this contract? You should be able to round off, perhaps the names of at least the usual suspects. You're going to come up immediately with 3, 4, 5 organisations that you think will be bidding this opportunity. Now, we sometimes deal with clients and we say, who else will be bidding this opportunity? They say, we've got no idea. Well, that concerns me, because what it usually means is they don't fully understand the particular part of the market that they're seeking to work within. The next criteria is the size of opportunity. When you're thinking about this, then you should know what a big opportunity is like in your organisation. So maybe you're an organisation that £1 million contract would be a good one. Is it £1 million a year? Is it a million across 3 years? Just as an example, you'll have to pick the size that is a good contract for you. So a good contract for you, an excellent contract, you're going to give a very high score out of 10. You're going to have medium-sized contracts. They're obviously getting the scores of, around about 5 out of 10. And the very low scores are, it's a very small contract. So these are the ones you're giving the 0, the 1, or the 2 out of 10 to. The price quality split's an interesting one, and we've given this a ×2 weighting. This is very important in the public sector. It's got some importance in the private sector, but in the private sector, it's much more difficult to get underneath the decision-making process. And quite often they're maybe evaluating broadly similar organisations, and it becomes a bit of a price exercise to some extent, but you do want to talk up value still. However, in the public sector, they have to, by law, publish what the price quality split is. Is this favourable to your organisation? This is what you've got to be thinking about in this bid, no bid decision tool. So are you, if we took a supermarket, are you a Waitrose where there's a great focus on quality, on service? So that would look like, in public sector terms, maybe 80% or 70% quality. Are you, if you were a supermarket, would you be like a Farm Foods in Iceland, or maybe going up a bit further to an Aldi or a Lidl, where pretty, reasonable quality products, but you are very much targeting customers who are extremely budget conscious as well, who are looking to get a good deal. So therefore, something like an 80% price would suit you. 70%, even 60% price. 50-50 becomes a bit more interesting, of course, but 50-50 can still be something that price is going to be quite important, especially if the lowest price gets 50% and then everything else is prorated from that, which is usually how it happens. But sometimes, and quite often, the highest quality doesn't get 50%. So people are marked, their bids are marked, and maybe the highest one ends up getting, 35 out of 50 or 40 out of 50 or even 45 out of 50. But if the cheapest price gets 50, then actually even a 50-50 price quality split, depending on the sort of scoring criteria, then what you could find is that still becomes slightly more a price-based decision. So we're actually giving this a weighting of 2 because it is a very important criteria. Profitability, your commercial people need to be doing some stress testing of this. We also recommend posing clarification questions around the commercials of the evaluation here. So you need to understand how profitable this is likely to be, and we perhaps suggest building a bit of a straw person to imagine the contract and work it all through to check the profitability of it. I mentioned also the deliverability. You don't want to just win a contract that is not going to be deliverable for your organization. So be a bit careful here as well. Make sure that you can walk your talk, because if you were to be put off the contract, if you were to have the contract terminated, or there were to be penalties or liquidated damages, etc., then you don't want that situation. So be very careful around that as well. The final one that I suggested was the one of strategic fit. How close a fit is this to what you do, to what you're looking to do, to the markets that you want to be successful in? So if anybody's been able to do the mental arithmetic, or if perhaps you've been creating the Excel spreadsheet as I've been working my way through this webinar on how to create a bid, no bid decision tool, you'll see that actually the maximum score available under this particular tool and its criteria is 100. So what's important is that you establish as an organization what your kind of threshold is when using this tool. Many organizations that I work with decide that if an opportunity scores perhaps 60 and above, then it is a likely bid. They're likely going to bid it. It could be that if it scores between 40 and 59, it's at that kind of midpoint where maybe you want to bid it, but you're just not sure. And this might have been, there's been quite a bit of debate perhaps in the organisation about whether to bid it. This is where we recommend that you take the decision to a senior decision maker. So in a smaller organisation, it's perhaps a managing director or chief executive. And in a larger organisation, it'll be the director who's got overall responsibility, perhaps for sales and marketing or bidding. If it's below 40, then usually you would not be bidding. I did say, though, these are not complete tablets of stone. It may be that there's certain things. It could be that your organisation has scored really well through the process, but perhaps you're aware that there's a bit of a kind of a antipathy towards your organisation at the client end. Maybe unspoken, but you think it's going to be difficult to win. So you may have to adopt a different approach to deal with that situation. It might be as well that you're taking into account resources. So yes, this looks like a great opportunity, but you know what? You don't have the bid resources to actually resource the bid. Now, this is where you can get external bid specialists. Organisations like AM Bid can be your bid team to actually help you get the bid over the line at a time when you do not have sufficient resources within your organisation to do the bid. There could be other factors that are just making it a bit uncertain at the moment whether you bid. And that's why we say that you want to have a senior decision maker or a group of senior decision makers who actually take the final decision. But this bid, no bid decision tool is really helpful in starting to put a bit of science around your bidding. What you'll find as well is that when you use the tool and it starts being used, I've put this tool even into several FTSE 100 businesses, and they're using it really well. And we'll hear things like, what score does it have on the bid, no bid decision tool? And that's one of the things that the senior person in these organizations is often wanting to know. How long would a discussion around the tool take? Well, you maybe want to spend an hour or two setting up your bid, no bid decision tool. But once you've got it set up, then very quickly you can start using it to guide your decision making. And using the tool, working through the spreadsheet, getting a bit of a discussion and hopefully agreement around the scoring of the particular opportunities, that should only take about 30 minutes. It does require, though, that people have done a little bit of research beforehand. So your salesperson needs to be coming with armed with their information. The finance person's perhaps taking a quick look at the kind of commercial evaluation. The ops person's taking a look at the deliverability of the contract. The bid person has taken a look at things like the price quality split, the resource availability within the bid team to carry out the work. And you want to have your senior decision maker or sponsor, if possible, on the call, or at least very quickly thereafter, when the information gets taken to them, they're able to make a decision, and you then go forward with your bid. So rather than just making that emotional decision of this is what we do, so let's just go for it, you now have a little bit of science that you can use. So as the decision making starts to become a bit more rational, you should also be measuring then what happens with your bids. What happens with your win rate now that you're using the bid no bid decision tool, and where the assumptions that you made in reaching that decision, perhaps around the profitability of the bid, the deliverability of the bid, the resource availability of the bid, all these sort of things you want to be looking back on and reflecting. Did you make the right decisions? Your score right? And what will probably happen over time is that your scoring will become a bit more sophisticated as you gain more experience in using the bid no bid decision tool. I hope that you have found this this discussion on the live stream helpful, or you're watching it on recording. Be very interested to hear your comments, either by posting them in here, by messaging me direct at andrew@ambid.co.uk, or posting your comments on LinkedIn as well. Always interested to hear these. So I'm really excited to be doing LinkedIn live streaming. I've got another one coming up on Monday. It's going to be 12 noon on Monday, the 3rd of August, and it's going to be called Who is Marking Your Bid? And I look forward to seeing some more of you on there.